Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And today I want to do part 5 of my analysis of the trial of Richard Allen in the Delphi case. And I'm going to do a wrap up for the week. I had no idea they're actually going to have, they were going to have the trial on a Saturday too. That poor jury. I mean, they don't even get a full weekend. So, but they did have something this Saturday and some very interesting stuff. So I do want to talk about a few very important things, and I'll do my determination as to where I think the trial is at this point. And I also want to, before I start the whole show, recommend another channel. Now, I also want you to subscribe to my channel. Mind you, please do subscribe. Click the bell so you get notifications. Check my playlist. But I highly suggest you also check out Lawyer Lee's channel. Now, I very rarely recommend other channels. Not because I hate people, not because I'm jealous of them, because I have a million subscribers and I don't, but because as an educational channel, I only want to recommend other channels I believe are educational, that they really have worth to the people watching, so that it improves people's understanding of profiling or crime or evidence. And I ran into her channel and I'm like, wow. Okay, let me tell you just a little bit about the channel that she has. Let me show you the one I saw. I saw this video, was Richard Allen's Garnett gruesome murder scene. And she was dynamite. I mean, I want to tell you what she actually does as her YouTube channel. She's got 176,000 subscribers. She got 100,000 more than I do. I can tell you that. And she says, the cases everyone's talking about made understandable. Oh my gosh, that's the word I love. Made understandable. She does make it understandable. And I spent a lot of time doing so many shows, panels over the years on TV with lawyers, attorneys. And a lot of times they just say crap. They're brought on a panel and they just blurt out some stuff, either for a defense or for a prosecution, whatever. They just blurt out stuff. They don't really explain where they're coming from. A lot of it's publicity for them and not much more. What she did, from what I saw, is she is going through the entire Delphi trial. And she's got a massive amount of notes. She's going, okay, then the defense did this, and then they said this, the judge said that. And a lot of times when I see people throwing out stuff about trials, they don't understand what's going on in the trial. They just talk stuff. She actually understands. Now, she was never a criminal lawyer from what I can see, but she understands how trials work, and she really does understand evidence, and she's honest. And I was very, very happy with what I saw. So if you're going into the next week wanting to know more about the trial, yes, please do check out my videos, because I'm going to do a profiling focus. But I will say, if you want to know bit by bit what's going on in the trial and every single thing, check out Lawyer Lee's channel, linked below. Very, very impressed. And I'm going to mention a couple of things she said, which I really liked, because I thought it was really great. So I'm going to start now with, I have about 3 major things I want to talk about as far as the day went and what was said during the trial, what evidence was presented, and I'll give my, again, determination of what I think happened. All right, with this whole trial so far. All right, so I'm reading this from wishtv.com. It's kind of a blog of the trial. At 9:05 a.m., the state called its first witness to the stand, Melissa Oberg, operations data analyst for a clinical asset health management company. However, she previously worked as a forensic firearm analyst for the Indiana State Police, but resigned in 2013. She explained how she analyzes a firearm and the impressions that are made on bullets, the parts of the gun, and basically, one thing she points out, the jury went to hours of this, is like they're dazed. And she also commented, which I thought was just great, because she's honest. She goes, I don't really know about guns. And I'm like, I'm trying to do, yesterday I talked about how they said, oh, they got a crash course. And I brought out this book about gunshot wounds, and I read the stuff on ballistics. I read just like this much, and people's eyes were already glazing over, going, "What?" Because it's very technical. And she admitted it's so freaking technical. Even she was like struggling with it. Can you imagine a jury that has no training in this, trying to understand what is true and what isn't true? But I thought her conclusions were reasonable, and I have a very similar conclusion about this bullet, what they call the magic bullet. All right. So she explained. They show pictures. The state showed pictures of an unspent 40 caliber bullet found near Libby German and Abby Williams' bodies near Deer Creek. Oberg identified the bullet as a Winchester 40 caliber cartridge that had no biological substance on it. So it's unfortunate there was no DNA on it. And some people say, well, how is that possible? Because don't you put the, you do, but if you don't want your fingerprints on it or your DNA on it, there are ways to put things in, you can wear something over your gun, you can have any kind of a glove on your hand, and use that. So, and if you're planning to do something criminal, you definitely might do that. So she also noted possible, now here's where the problem comes in. She also noted possible ejector marks and compared it to ejector marks from a Glock 22, another 40 caliber weapon. All right. So after they just went on for a while, and then they took a recess, thank God. And Oberg showed the jury a presentation that concluded that the gun collected from Richard Allen's home in 2022, a Sig Sauer, had cycled the cartridge that was found near the bodies. She compared tool marks from the unspent cartridge and a test cartridge, saying several marks were in sufficient agreement. Oh, Lord. Okay. Several marks were in sufficient agreement. Well, several marks, not every mark, just several marks. And if the guns are manufactured, could there be several marks on another gun that was similar, that would have the same marks? Because it wasn't fired, so the marks were very faint. Yeah. Oberg finished by confirming the cartridge found at the scene had not been fired. She said that tool marks are features imparted on an object by the contact and force extended from a tool. That is correct. Tool mark evidence has always been, it's very interesting, but sometimes it can be questionable depending on how solid the tool mark evidence is. This is not real solid. So the defense attorney, Brad Rossi, asked Oberg to define sufficient agreement. Yeah, and discussed how PCAST, President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, have been studying if the tool mark industry is valid science. So, oh Lord. So then Oberg went into what's the difference between cycling versus firing a cartridge. She again confirmed the marks on the cartridge helped her determine it matched Allen's gun. They asked her if it was like a paternity test, like, it's his or it isn't his. And she said, well, no. He asked her if it's possible that an unspent round could have been cycled through multiple firearms, and she agreed. Yeah, okay. Whether you think tool mark evidence is crap or it isn't crap, or whatever you want to believe, this is not good evidence for the prosecution. It is not. It's not strong enough that you can conclude absolutely that this came from his gun. That's not what was said. And that's problematic because the only physical evidence linking Allen to the scene is that one bullet. And if that one bullet isn't strong enough evidence, there is zero linking him to the scene. And that's a problem. So the first part is that information is evidence-wise, it's not good. It is not good. She also supposedly, she showed these pictures and to the jury, and they said, the jury's like, oh, those don't look the same. And she goes, oh, no, those are just references for me to remember things. What? Okay. She was supposedly a great, really good witness until about that point. So I'm going to say the defense came out on the winning end on that. This spent bullet is this bullet that was there at the scene is not great evidence at all. Now, some people will ask, why would it even have been the scene? And that's a reasonable question to ask. In other words, uh, you know, why would he, if he's abducting two girls, essentially drop a bullet at the scene? What in the world would it be there for? Now, I do have an answer for that. He said that he kept a bullet in the chamber. He didn't have the gun on him that day. Of course, he's going to say that. But he does keep a bullet in the chamber. Now, this I think is important in the sense that does it give an explanation for why there might be a bullet that cycled through the gun but not shot at the scene? And the answer to that is yes. I'll explain it to you. All right. Why would there be a bullet in the chamber? Okay, when you have a gun, you have a thing called you got your magazine, and in the magazine you stuff all the bullets. Okay, then you put, this is for people who don't know anything about guns. Then you slam it into the gun, and you have two choices. Let me show you what choices. You can just put it in the gun and not chamber a bullet. In other words, you pull the slide back, and a bullet goes into the chamber. Some people do that because they want to be sure when the moment comes when you need to protect yourself, you don't have to go, because that wastes a lot of time. You want to be able to pull the trigger and have that bullet fly out of the gun and save your life. So you want to make sure there's that bullet in the chamber. Some people want to make sure that they have as many bullets in the gun as they can, so they chamber the bullet. They knock the magazine out. They put another bullet in one bullet goes into the chamber. Now you got an extra space. Then you put an extra bullet in there, and now you've got a fully loaded magazine and a bullet in the chamber. Now, why don't some people want the bullet in the chamber? Well, because it's a safety hazard. If you're leaving that gun lying around, anybody can grab it. Or if, for example, the killer grabs it off of you and turns to shoot you, if he pulls the trigger, it will not fire. That gives you a chance to grab the gun back or run away or whatever you're going to do. So, or if a child gets hold of it and pulls the trigger, it will not it will not kill somebody because there's no bullet in the chamber. So there are safety reasons for not putting the bullet in the chamber. But on the other hand, if you want to be able to shoot the gun quickly, you better pull that slide back and chamber a bullet so it's ready to go. Now, for myself as a female, sometimes pulling the slide back is not that easy because I'm kind of a wimpy. I've always had weak hands, very weak. I do poorly with a revolver because I can hardly pull the trigger on the damn things. It's embarrassing. But I have a Smith & Wesson 9mm. But if I want to protect myself, and I'm going to have, let's say, the gun near my bed or wherever in a drawer next to me, because I'm worried about somebody breaking in or suddenly popping into my room and suddenly there they are. I don't want to have to change. I don't want to have to pull that slide back and change. No, I want to. So I would, because I keep my gun locked up so that no child can get a hold of it. And I believe very strongly in the rule that you either have it locked up or you have the gun on you and not just lying about where anybody can access it. So unless you're the only one who, have it on you or like literally next to you and no child is in your home or something like that. I believe very strongly in being very, very cautious about safety. But if you're under threat and you're concerned that you might be attacked and you don't have time to do this, you're going to want to have a bullet in the chamber. He says he keeps a bullet in the chamber, which is interesting. I'm not sure why he has to do that, but I think his daughter has grown now. I'm not sure if she's in the home. She's an adult. Can't remember at that time exactly how old she was, but if he didn't have children in the home, he might have wanted to use that as protection in the home and have that chambered and ready to go. But here's the thing. If he's bridge guy and he was at the scene and said down the hill to these girls, the one thing he might do when he's trying to scare them, because people get scared when you go rack that thing. It's a scary sound. And the concept then is, at that point, the bullet is going into the chamber. Even if you don't understand guns, that is the gun is ready. Now, of course, the gun was already ready, but the impact of him doing that, I'll kill you, can be very useful in control situations to be a scary bad guy. And if he did that, that would be why there is a bullet cycled through the gun that fell onto the ground. So I can see why the person, bridge guy, because I can't say it's Alan. I can say bridge guy, likely that is exactly what he did. He had a bullet in the chamber. He racked it to do a scare thing, and the bullet went onto the ground. And was he an idiot not to pick it up? The answer to that is yes. But not every person who commits crimes is exactly bright. Okay? So I think that is what happened. I can't say that Alan is the one that made it happen. All right. Now, then I want to look at something that was said. The defense had the state police lieutenant Jerry Holman came to the stand, and he interviewed Richard Allen on October 22nd. So remember, 3 days after the crime, he self-reported, probably because he knew he had been seen at pretty much the scene, close to the scene. And he was going to get ahead of it, by looking like an innocent guy, saying, hey, I would never have come in and told you this if I was the guy. But yet he's probably going, hey, I work in the CVS. It's very likely somebody actually knew who I was. And funny thing was, when they did interview him later, he says, everybody's been accusing me of saying that I was the guy. That was before he was arrested. So maybe there are people talking that they thought he was bridge guy. Because somebody said, well, why did nobody else, all these people in town, why didn't they say he was the guy before? Well, maybe they did say stuff. At least he heard it. But anyway, so 3 days after the crime, he self-reports because he was seen there. And the guy who should not have been doing this job, met him outside a grocery store, gave him a 10-minute interview. It was pitiful. And then the interview was filed, and he was supposedly cleared, although it makes zero sense. And what's so sad about that is that this is a small area with only so many people. First of all, has to be male. Has to be a male who's not in a wheelchair or 80 years old. A male who was missing during that period of time, didn't have an alibi, and could have been in the park. There's not that many people, because whoever was there knew. Bridge guy knew the park. So we're not talking about a trucker rolling through town from the East Coast and just happened to be there and decided to kill 2 girls in that park. No, we're talking about somebody who knew the area. So if you take away take the population of the area, you get rid of all the females, that's over 50%. Now you're down to a certain amount. You get rid of all the children. You get rid of all the elderly. And it goes like this. There's not that many men in town who could have been bridge guy. You got a guy who reports being there, and he's not the top suspect, or at least in the top 5 or 10. What the hell? And it took them 5 years before a woman who went through all the stuff voluntarily said, hey, wait a minute, what about this guy? 5 years is too late. One of the most important things about identifying a suspect very quickly is the fact that you can go to his house, go to his car, go to people, and you can find as much evidence as possible before he throws it away, burns it up in the old fire pit, and does everything he can to get rid of the evidence. 5 years later, you're pretty much screwed unless the guy's really into souvenirs and kept the souvenirs in a little box under his bed or something. Unless you got that, you've lost all that evidence. So they ended up with pretty much no evidence except that bullet, which cannot be linked to him. It can be thought to be his. And I can understand why bridge guy would have dropped it there, shall we say, fell, but I can't prove it's Allen's. And I don't think the prosecution did that either. Now, here's something else that's just appalling when I read this. He says that, oh my gosh. So let me start here, just because this shows you how bad the investigation was. So they're talking to this guy, and Baldwin, that's the defense attorney, says, let's see. Um, Baldwin claimed Holman said this to get into Allen's head. This is something he was saying about just stuff, different stuff, to get into his head about how this would impact his family. Baldwin also said Holman did not send the unspent cartridge to another agency for a second test to see if it matched Allen's Sig Sauer. He continued by saying Allen's drive home after the interview was recorded, but a quote Holman claimed Allen made earlier in October was not recorded. Baldwin then questioned Holman on his theory about where Richard Allen's car was parked on February 13th, 2017. Holman answered they didn't have a theory, but couldn't name witnesses who knew where his car was. He also said he didn't watch the security camera footage that showed Allen's car near the trail. Holman then told the jury he believed only one person killed Libby and Abby, but first thought maybe more than one had been involved. Holman commented on remarks made by past law enforcement about Libby's death. Then they said they tried to analyze the height of bridge guy from the video, but didn't think it would be accurate. Baldwin chimed in to say the service would have cost around $10,000. Baldwin asked Holman if he knew about the hair found in Abby's hand that wasn't fully DNA tested until last week. Holman responded that timing and resources needed to be used in other areas. Seriously? In what other areas? You got hair in a dead girl's hand and you don't think you should test that crap? And then he says, there's been mistakes made. Yes, Holman said about the overarching investigation. The police investigation looks like garbage. They've made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And then the prosecution took this very, very weak case to court. And here's the thing. After they went to his house and they said he acted squirrely, and he may have. Now, there's two reasons people act squirrely. One is because they committed a crime. The other is that they're just squirrely people in general, and they act weird. So they're there, and they're like, the dude's acting squirrely. And he's got a Sig Sauer. So let's arrest him. I'm not even sure. I might have to go back and see what that probable cause for arrest even was. I don't see it. What the heck? He did confess he was in the park that day, but that's it. Is that and the bullet? That was probable cause for arrest? It's pretty pitiful. It's just pitiful. Also, one more thing. Holman then told the jury that the killer heard. Oh, let's see. They talked about. Okay. Baldwin and Holman discussed the sticks found at the scene and on top of the girls' bodies. Holman said the sticks were used to conceal the crime, but they weren't positioned in any special way. Well, apparently they didn't do such a good job of concealing the girls either. But yes, I agree they weren't. I don't believe in the Odinist crap, so no, I don't think it was. I don't even know why the killer did that, except he thought he was going to. Maybe he was trying to cover up the girls' bodies. And it says here, Holman then told the jury he thinks the killer hurt people on the bridge and then killed the girls. So Holman has a bunch of theories, and none of them he can support with evidence. It's just a theory, he said. Theories are still supposed to be supported with evidence. If you can't come up with that, I don't know what your theory is worth. Holman added that two witnesses, Betsy Blair and Sarah Carbo, were believable. Yeah, okay. And also said they once considered the idea there were two people on the bridge. Okay. Let's see. The session ended, thank God, with two questions from the jury. The first question asked if there was a way to get to the bridge without crossing the bridge. And Holman answered, there's an unapproved way. Okay. There was a cemetery very close by, and you can walk straight from the cemetery to the beginning of the bridge where the girls were killed. An unapproved way. Okay. All right. So let me give you my determination of where I think this case is at the end of the week. It's dreadful. The prosecution case is absolutely dreadful. And there are people messaging me and emailing me and go, come on now, it's clear he's bridge guy. It's obvious he's bridge guy. No, in your opinion, he's bridge guy, but you have to prove that in a court of law, and they have not done that. They have not proven he's bridge guy. The face of bridge guy was not clear, and because it was not clear, that it's not like you can say that is him. And even if you could think it's him, if anybody remembers the Stephen Avery case, Making a Murderer, which is colossal. I absolutely hate that documentary, and I despise Netflix for doing it because it's garbage and full of lies. But Stephen Avery, who is a serial killer and killed the girl that he's in prison for now, massive amount of evidence linking him to that crime. There's just no question in my mind. That was a huge amount of evidence. He got convicted and should be convicted. However, he was wrongly convicted in an earlier crime where a woman was raped. The woman identified Stephen Avery as the guy who did it. And it wasn't that big an area. And Stephen Avery was a known psycho. I mean, the police knew this guy as a creepo. And so when the woman gave a description that identified Stephen Avery, they're like, yep, it's him. Well, it turned out not to be him. There was this doppelganger. I mean, swear, you put those side by side, you're like, dang, they looked almost alike. So even if he looked like the guy, even if you had a slightly better face, a little bit more, whatever, and you think bridge guy is Alan, you're still thinking it's Alan, not proving it's Alan. And those are two entirely different things. So what they have so far, let's look at what the prosecution is this. He admitted to being in the park, which is true. That's a fact. He was in the park around the time the girls were killed. That's an excellent piece of information, but it's not evidence he killed the girls. He could be bridge guy, but there's no proof that he is bridge guy. The witnesses were questionable as far as their descriptions go. So that kind of all it's kind of a waste. The bullet comes from a gun that could be like the gun that he has, but it doesn't prove it was actually cycled through his gun. Therefore, you cannot say his ammo was at the scene. You cannot say that. So now what do you have? The only actual evidence they have is that he was in the area around the time the girls were killed. That's it. He was in the park looking at fish around the time the girls were killed. That is not enough. I would at least hope not, even if I think that he might be the guy. If I were on a jury, I would not convict him on that. I think you got to be kidding me. I can't convict this guy, even if I don't like him, even if I think he's creepy, even if I think he might be bridge guy. The problem is the might be, because I don't see there's any proof that he is bridge guy or that he killed the girls. There's no proof as of yet. Now, next week is coming along, and I think that's going to be, I assume the prosecution's got to roll out those supposed 60 confessions. And I think that it's going to come down to these confessions. That is going to be the only thing that I think is left for the prosecution to convince the jury that this man is bridge guy and this man killed these two girls. And they better be absolutely, there must be something about those confessions that would make you think, even if the dude was losing his mind, he wouldn't have given these confessions. They're just not all for false confessions. There's too much there that says he confessed for some reason, that not out of guilt, because if he is bridge guy and a murder of two young girls, that dude's a psycho, and psychos don't have guilt. They confess for other reasons, because they're trying to get people on their side, because they don't want wifey not to come back to prison, maybe whatever. They have all kinds of reasons they do things, but it's never out of guilt. So I don't know what the confessions are. I haven't heard any of them. I don't know. So at this point, I would have said before this case even went to trial, I hope the prosecution isn't depending on just these confessions to convict him. But now that we're here, the prosecution is depending on these confessions to convict him, because there's absolutely nothing else worthwhile. And that's very rare that a case will go to court with this kind of limited stuff. and that he even got arrested on that limited stuff kind of blows me away. Again, I want to say this before I end this. I don't see a conspiracy theory. There were better people to arrest and try to pin it on than this guy. So I don't think they picked him out to be the scapegoat and to close the case down just because he was in the park that day. I don't think that's the reason. I think they truly believe it's him. Sometimes when you go and you interview the guy and he does act squirrely as hell, and you just you get the feeling, this is the guy, man. And you look at everybody else and you come up with no other people in the park but him that fit that description, that had the gun and acting the way he acts. I think the prosecution and the police believe he is the killer of the two girls. However, I don't know that they can prove it. So I don't think they're doing it disingenuously. I don't think they're just trying to, cover themselves from doing a really crappy job of police investigation, which they did. It was bad. And sometimes, depending on the police agency and the training people get, just sometimes things go wrong. I don't, people just jump to this conclusion of corruption and cover up so quickly when it's always more likely to be incompetence or just a difficult case. And they did have some other interesting suspects that came to light quite quickly and could have distracted them from this guy. Even, I don't know who the heck put him on the cleared list. I don't get who did that or how his stuff got buried when he was actually at the park. That's insane. But there were other people you could look at, shall we say. So that they went after him for no reason is not true. But I don't think their case is so bad at the moment. They better have one hell of a bunch of convincing confessions. And that's where I stand on this. So anyway, thank you for being here. And again, I want to say, check out the link below. Go over to Lawyer Lee. She's just, I'm impressed, and I'm rarely impressed. When I say somebody's good, and let me point this out again, because I say this because I think it's important. I don't have to agree with everything she says. I don't have to agree with her determination on every case she ever looks at. And she doesn't have to do the same with me. She doesn't have to say, I agree with Pat Brown 100%, or, I agree with every single case that Pat Brown has ever profiled. She doesn't have to. I think one of the sad things in this world is that we toss people out if they don't agree with us 100%, or, and that's just nonsense. She's doing a great job on her channel. She's explaining things extraordinarily well. She's going through things. It's excellent. And as a person who loves education, she goes into my good list on she's educating people. So do check her out. I think it's going to be worthwhile. And I will probably see you next week when I assume the confession stuff will show up. I hope, because it's just, I'm just appalled at how bad it really is. Anyway, thank you for being here, and I'll see you soon.